Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. And I think I have to threaten the computer again so that the live stream actually starts. I see myself frozen still there, but hopefully it'll come on in a minute. There it is, just like last time. I just have to speak to it. So please let me know if you Please let me know if you can hear me online. Apparently the sound is working well in the hall here, but please let me know at home or wherever you are joining from if you can't hear me. But I wanted to start by welcoming all of you on this fairly cold night and Valentine's Day. Thank you for showing up for Buddhist Mindfulness. And so the last couple of weeks, or I should say 3 weeks, we have been exploring the heart practices that the Buddha taught about that really go very lovely hand in hand with Buddhist mindfulness. So there's these different qualities of the heart that the Buddha taught that we can cultivate to really bring out, that they're always existent in the heart, but with practice, with meditation practice and practice in daily life, we can really cultivate and bring them out. And so these, just to mention them all, these practices are called the Four Brahma Viharas, and I've mentioned them often here in the temple, and they translate from the Pali or from the Sanskrit, these practices, the Four Brahma Viharas, Four Brahma Vihara meaning abiding places of the heart. So these are the qualities of loving kindness, of compassion, of joy, and of equanimity. And I'm going to be focusing this evening on the fourth Brahma Vihara, equanimity or balance of mind. But I just wanted to say that all these different heart qualities, the four Brahma Viharas, these dwelling places of the heart and mind, basically represent different qualities of the heart. So the quality of loving kindness is this quality of benevolence and friendliness towards all beings, so wishing ourselves and all beings well. And then compassion is this quality that responds when there's suffering in the world or within ourselves. So there's this, often referred to, this quivering of the heart that responds with kindness and compassion to the suffering of the world. And then there's also joy, and that's basically the heart quality of delight or rejoicing. And here what the Buddha means is rejoicing in basically the beauty of nature, rejoicing in the good fortune of others. And also I learned today when reading in the scriptures, rejoicing in harmonious or wholesome relationships or interbeing. So when there's harmony in the community or in a certain relationship. So that's also a type of rejoicing that the Buddha includes in cultivating joy. And then this fourth quality of the heart is often translated as equanimity or evenness or balance of mind. So I would like to speak a little bit about that this evening and then guide us in a meditation related to it, leading into silence as always. So equanimity or balance of mind is this profound quality of letting go, a kind of clarity and evenness of the heart and mind. And just to get a little bit of a taste of that, I thought we'd maybe start out with a mini exercise. So for that, just briefly, I just invite you to maybe close your eyes if that's comfortable, or maybe lower your gaze so you can still stay inwardly focused. And just imagine maybe earlier today, it was a beautiful day, the sun was out. Imagine that you were going to the beach, to the ocean, maybe your favorite beach. And you went there today to take a nice walk on really firm sand. Maybe you had a backache and you felt if you're out by the ocean and you can really walk on firm sand, that would really feel good to your back, to really loosen up the muscles in your back. But as you get there, you notice that the tide is in at the moment and there's hardly any beach because the water is in and the sand is extra soft and it's really hard to walk on. How do you feel? And now maybe imagine another time another day coming to that same beach, to the ocean, and this time your intention is to go for a nice swim. You're really prepared just to dive in. It's a really warm day. You're really not there to walk today. You just want to go for a swim. But on this particular day, the tide is way out, and it takes you a long time to actually get to a place where you can dive into the ocean to swim. How do you feel? So a sign of someone being well is, and you can open your eyes again if you wish, or keep them closed, whatever feels good to you in this moment. It's always good to listen to your body, see what feels right. But so a sign of someone being well established in equanimity or this balance of mind is that their heart can remain peaceful despite the changing tides of life. So I wanted to go over a few aspects or qualities of equanimity that we can develop in our own hearts and minds. And so an important aspect of equanimity is what's called wise love. So a love that can experience life fully, the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows of life, as it's often referred to in Taoism, Chinese religion. So that simply refers to the 10,000 joys and sorrows, simply refers to this roller coaster of life where sometimes conditions are really conducive to well-being and to joy, and then on other days it just feels like, oh gosh, life is just so hard, it's unpleasant. I really wish I didn't have to have this experience. So that's just how that it is expressed in Taoism, the 10,000 joys and sorrows of life. And then with the cultivation of equanimity as part of our Buddhist practice, it allows us to no longer get overly excited or deflated by life, but simply to recognize and know what's happening in the moment. Is there something beautiful happening that we can rejoice in, or are we going through a challenging moment? And is it possible to keep a steadiness of the heart and mind instead of feeling like, oh, this is terrible, or oh, this is beautiful, but rather just sort of keeping an evenness of mind with both conditions as they appear. So a person with strong equanimity is actually able to know and to feel all feelings. It's not just that they're a robot and just sit there and I don't care if it's challenging, I don't care if it's peaceful. They're actually fully capable of feeling all human emotions. And so they're capable of feeling deep pleasure, excruciating pain, as well as dullness and boredom. But what's distinct about a person with a strong sense of equanimity is that they're no longer thrown by the conditions of life. They're no longer on this roller coaster, oh, this is wonderful, or oh, this is terrible. They're just able to keep a balance of the heart and mind. And I'm sure you can all relate to these situations. I see a few of you nodding your heads. And I've certainly noticed over time and over the years with my practice, my meditation practice, especially being someone that tends towards fear and anxiety, that with practice, I've really been able to establish and develop this peacefulness of mind. I still get triggered when something feels like, oh, this is really creating a lot of fear in me. But I've noticed that I'm able to come out of it a lot more easily, or even not have such a strong reaction in the first place. Just simply being aware of the changing conditions of life that are happening moment by moment. And so that's really beautiful to keep in mind and to practice with. So it's important to notice when we get excited by the nice things, like I said, and then the other times when we get really horrified by what feels ugly, challenging, or wrong. And because when we do that, we really kind of become like a hamster on a wheel, always running away from what feels unpleasant and always running towards what feels pleasant. So always wanting what's pleasant and enjoyable, and like rejecting and feeling aversive and irritated by what feels challenging or what we judge as bad or wrong. So this is really what traps us in this wheel in the first place, this hamster wheel. And I think that's a really good metaphorical example, actually, this hamster wheel I've often heard teachers talk about. And in Buddhism, this is actually called the wheel of samsara. So in Buddhism, there's this belief in Buddhist cosmology that we get reborn into this wheel of existence over and over again until we can see really with clarity the reality of life. That really the conditions of life are always changing. So why really get so caught up in a moment of frustration or irritation or despair? It doesn't mean that we can feel those feelings and allow them in, but we can also maybe remember, oh, this is happening right now, but then also watch for it changing again. And I remember, this is just coming to me in this moment, I think one of my Dharma friends told me that she heard a study that when we experience a feeling and don't get caught in it, it actually never lasts more than 90 seconds, but it's really when we then create stories and get wrapped up in the stories, oh, this is terrible, this is horrible, or this is wonderful, and really sort of get swept away by desire and wanting more of it, that we then get trapped on this hamster wheel. But if you can just sort of allow it and experience it and not add anything to it, it basically will just subside after 90 minutes. Maybe try that sometime when something feels really challenging. So the purpose of Buddhist mindfulness practice really is to help us see through the constructs of the mind. So the stories that we tell ourselves in those situations that I just talked about. And to really notice the filters through which we see the world. Like I said, is it horrible? Is it terrible? Oh, it's beautiful. It's kind of like putting on a set of sunglasses and then only seeing the world through the shades of that shade of ugliness or horror or beautiful and ecstatic. So it just helps bring out this evenness of mind a lot more when we can develop a sense of equanimity and evenness of mind. And so this quality of equanimity allows us to sit and look at the hamster wheel and not get onto it or not get caught onto it, just simply knowing what's present in this moment, like I just said. So I wanted to share a story from the Buddha's time. I don't know how many people actually know, but there were quite a number of not just male monastics or male monks, but also quite a number of females that joined the Buddha's community at the time of his life. And there was actually a beautiful book of poems written of the enlightened nuns, and I don't remember the title right now, but a beautiful book, and how many nuns actually also became enlightened in the Buddha's time along with the monks. So there's this particular story of a nun that came to be known as Patachara, and this is a story that shows up in the Buddhist scriptures from the time before she became a nun. And she was a young woman, and she lived in a certain village in India. And she happened to fall in love with a young man that was not of the same caste as she was. And so that was, especially in ancient India, really not something that was acceptable. So she knew that neither her family nor his family would be in agreement for them to get married. So what they decided was they decided to elope and walk sort of, I don't know how many miles, I'm just making it up, 100 miles, to get to maybe a place where their families wasn't near to live and then start a family there. So they did that, and after some time they had a toddler and basically a baby, and they had started a family. And so they were out and about this one day just to go to the river, somewhat removed from where they were actually living and had built their little hut to live in. So they were out on a picnic by the river. When they started out to travel to the river on foot, it was actually a beautiful day. But then by the time that they got there, these stormy clouds had sort of descended onto, the area by the river, and it started pouring. And so they got really concerned for the safety of, of their young children and of themselves. So the husband said, well, let me go into the forest and maybe get together some wood or whatever to build us a little shelter till the rain passes, or find maybe a place where we can hide under the tree. And he said, well, you stay here and I'll be right back. But she had put the baby basket down by the river and just basically left her toddler for a moment just to run after her husband and say, well, make sure that you come right back. It's really pouring and, we're not really safe here. And so he went off into the woods, and by the time she turned around to face the river, she saw that her toddler had actually walked into the river. And it was a really strong current, and the little boy got swept up by the current. And before she could even make it to the edge of the river, the boy was basically swept away and drowning and died tragically. But she still sort of swam out and tried to, rescue her child, but it was too late. And so she was really crying and feeling terribly despaired and grief-stricken. And then by the time she was facing the land again and swimming towards the land, she saw that there was an owl swooping down and going after her, newborn son, and grabbing the son and taking off and killing the son. So by the time she made it back to land, she had just lost both of her young sons, and she was just beside herself with grief and fear. And then her husband also didn't come back. And she was alone by herself all night, and then somehow found out the next morning that her husband had actually died in the woods as well, because a big branch had fallen onto him. So as you may imagine, at this point she is just completely beside herself with grief and despair, and she decides, she's all alone, and she decides to travel back on foot to at least get the support of her family. So she walks back the 100 miles, and by the time she gets back to her region where her family lives in that village, there has just been a fire and a lot of the houses had burned down. And as she looks around and finds the path to where the house of her family stood, she sees that there's no house left, and she finds out from a neighbor that recognizes her, who tells her, yeah, your family's house was burned too, and all your family perished. Your parents and your siblings, they're all dead. So at this point, she basically goes crazy in her mind. She completely loses it, and she just runs around in the village screaming from the top of her lungs, and nobody's able to console her. And at that moment, the Buddha and his monastics are just making their rounds in that particular village. As you might know, a lot of the monks in the tradition of Buddhism, they go out to beg for alms. They go out with their alms bowls to the villages to beg for food. That's part of their tradition. And so the Buddha notices this woman, this hollering and screaming woman that nobody can console, so he sort of leaves. They all walk in a line to go around for alms food, and he leaves the line and just sort of catches up with the woman, and then faces the woman with his, whole demeanor of compassion and kindness and love, and he looks at the woman, and just even by his presence is able to somewhat calm the woman down enough to at least, take in that the Buddha is standing in front of her. And basically what he says at that moment is, "Sister, regain your mindfulness. Sister, regain your senses." And apparently he also, by that time, the woman, just by the presence of the Buddha, was calming down a lot. And apparently then he also told the woman, "Sister, do not mourn. Be confident. Seek yourself. Neither your children, nor your husband, nor your relatives are a shelter. Relatives and loved ones are no protection for one who is affected by death." And I think what he meant to tell the woman is simply that we're all impacted by aging, sickness, and death, and that if we come to rely on the people in our lives for our happiness, something maybe not this tragic might happen, but ultimately we all might get sick, we all might lose loved ones. So I think what the Buddha was just trying to help the woman see is that, just come back to your mindfulness, create some space so that you can really allow yourself to feel your feelings in a more productive way, with a sense of mindfulness, creating space inside your heart and mind. And of course, as the story goes often in these scriptures, is that the woman immediately became enlightened and really was in contact with the truth of life and the truth of old age, sickness and death, and was able to come out of her grief and then joined the Buddha Sangha and became one of the enlightened nuns. So I think it's a somewhat dramatic story, but also a really good example of really how helpful it is to keep a sense of equanimity, and maybe especially in those more dramatic phases or moments of our life when we really feel things are out of control. Is it possible to come back to mindfulness, to allow the feelings to show up, to recognize what was happening inside of us, and to just create a lot of space and just really look what's happening here in our hearts and minds. So with this practice of equanimity, this quality, it really offers more of a bird's eye view that sees everything with perspective, everything that goes on outside of us, all the conditions, and everything that's happening inside of us. It helps us see the whole picture. Acts of kindness, compassion, and love in the world, coexisting with acts of war, aggression, and harm. And it also really offers the perspective of time. And I think I'm not alone when I feel that these are really challenging times that we're living through in the world, and maybe even from a perspective of politics. It doesn't matter what spectrum you're on politically wise, that a lot of us really feel things are getting out of control, maybe even worrying about the state of democracy in this country. And yet, there's so many people in the world that have lived through dictatorships and still are able to preserve a sense of happiness and peace in their hearts and minds, and have maybe seen dictators come and go. So they really have a clearer picture, a sense of, this person is in charge now, but eventually all dictators topple. It doesn't mean that, conditions are pleasant or easily bearable, but there's just this larger perspective, I think, especially among people who are nations that have experienced a lot of hardship, where it becomes easier to stay more peaceful and grounded in one's own heart and mind. Maybe you have experienced it differently, but that's my sense. So again, if we only focus on the ugly, we likely get horribly depressed and terrified. And if we only focus on what's beautiful, yes, we get uplifted, but we also then don't see the whole picture. So for a balance of heart and mind, it's really important to have the knowledge of both and not to get carried away by either one. And I think the serenity prayer of AA is just such a beautiful example of that. That God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I know a few of all you in this hall are really practicing that and have taken that to heart as part of your practice day to day. So with this quality of our heart and mind based in equanimity, we can really come to know how everything in life coexists, how birth coexists with death, the ugly with the beautiful, the sacred with the profane, youth and old age, spring and fall, day and night. And our wisdom can really help us know that there is not one without the other, that they all coexist together. You know, we're born young or go through youth, and then we all age and we all die at some point. So, and the same with these other qualities of ugly and beautiful, birth and death, sacred and profane, spring and fall, day and night. They both need one another and they both coexist in our lives. So the Buddha spoke of this as a teaching that he called the 8 worldly winds. And so these are metaphorical winds of these seeming opposites that we all encounter in our lives. So these 8 worldly winds are the opposites of praise and blame, success and failure, gain and loss, and pleasure and pain. And it's really these winds, these metaphorical winds, that keep us on this feeling roller coaster that I spoke about earlier, if you weren't there at that moment. So basically what that means is always wanting praise, success, gain, and pleasure, so 4 of those worldly winds, and then always rejecting the other ones, the blame, the failure, the loss, and the pain. And so with a sense of equanimity, we're not blown by these winds, and we let go into knowing that true happiness and peace is really generated from within, that as long as we depend on these world winds for our happiness, we're always going to be disappointed, always wanting praise, and then we get blamed, we get deflated, celebrating a success, and when there's a failure, again, we feel devastated, and the same with gain and loss, and pleasure and pain. So again, can we just simply let go into this knowledge that everything is constantly in flux, the conditions of life are always constantly changing, never staying the same. And there's a Thai forest monk who's no longer alive, but a lot of the senior Buddhist teachers, Western Buddhist teachers, studied under him in Thailand. He was a Thai forest master by the name of Ajahn Chah, and he spoke about this letting go and not being trapped on a hamster wheel in a very beautiful way. When he said that if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. And if you let go completely, you will have complete peace. And so just wanted to point out that letting go is not the same as getting rid of, but rather it's like having one's palm open, not grasping, not throwing away, but simply holding lightly whatever is happening in our lives. So I know a lot of you have experienced this exercise, but I thought this is a really, really good mini exercise to really experience this quality of letting go. Before we go into a longer meditation, I'd like to offer this exercise again. So if you want to just lower your gaze again or close your eyes if you're comfortable. And then just maybe bringing out your hands in front of you, maybe at your chest level with the palms both open, opening up towards the sky. And then take a moment to think about the one person or the one thing in your life that you feel that you absolutely need in your life for your happiness. You're really attached to this person or the circumstance or this thing, and you just feel like, okay, I can let go of everything else, but I really need this person or this thing to be in my life. So take a moment to decide for yourself what that is in this moment. And as you place that person or that thing into your palms, gently begin to close your hands around that person or that thing that you feel you absolutely cannot live without. And it might even create a sense of fear in you that you might have to let that go at some point. So what you do instead, you close your fists even tighter. This is the one thing, no, I really can't live without. I can give everything else up, but this is really what I need. So you're making your fists close tighter and tighter and tighter. And make them really tight as you can. Maybe even where you're beginning to feel a little bit of pain in your hands because you're holding on so tightly. And as you keep tightening and tightening and tightening, there comes a point where you just can't bear it anymore because it begins to hurt. And just make them a little bit tighter even yet. Just really holding on to this one thing that you need, and you're holding on with dear life, tighter and tighter and tighter. And then very gently begin to open your palms again, because you just can't hold on in this way anymore. Gently opening your palms. Maybe releasing your hands down. And just taking a moment what that feels like, the sense of letting go compared to the tightness. So if your eyes are already closed, I encourage you to just let them stay closed. We're going to move into the meditation part of our practice. I'll be offering a meditation on equanimity this evening, the theme that we've just focused on the last half hour. And again, if you're not comfortable with your eyes closed, maybe just having the gaze down, so that you can really invite yourself to have an inward focus. And just perhaps beginning by feeling the weight of your body as you're sitting here. Noticing the parts of your body that are connected with the floor beneath you. The seat that you're sitting on. Allowing the hands and the arms to rest in an easeful way. And perhaps finding a posture that allows you to sit somewhat upright so that your heart center can be lifted and your mind alert. And at the same time, inviting a sense of relaxation throughout the body, softening the body along with the mind. Feeling a sense of calm descending through the crown of the head. Smoothing out the forehead. As you bring your awareness into the eyes, allow the eyes to be soft. Feeling a sense of relaxation, not just through the eyes, but also the facial muscles as a whole. And just as you bring your attention down into your mouth, maybe just noticing the lips lightly touching, feeling that softness of the lips. The inside of the mouth relaxed as you relax your tongue down to the bottom of your mouth. Loosening the jaw. And inviting a sense of relaxation down into your neck muscles, front and back and the sides. Softening the shoulders, the heart and the chest. All the way down the side body into the belly. And just perhaps noticing the sensations of breathing with each in-breath and out-breath, feeling the belly rise and fall. Allowing the breath to be soft and at ease. Relaxing down the hips. Consciously taking any tightness out of the buttocks so that your hips and pelvis can relax down a bit more. Feeling the whole back body softening, aware of the spine. And just allowing the whole back to be at ease and relaxed. And then letting relaxation descend into the upper legs, through the knees, the lower legs, all the way into the feet. And then getting a sense of the whole body, just seated here on your cushion or chair. And a sense of relaxation and calm and ease in the body and mind. And inviting you to bring your awareness into the heart. So the spiritual heart in the center of your chest. And just imagining that you're breathing in and out of the heart space. Connecting with a sense of calm and a balanced quality of the heart and mind. A gentleness, ease, and stability of the heart and mind. And just allowing the breath to be soft and at ease as well as you continue to be guided through this meditation. Keeping the breath, the sensations of breathing as your anchor, an anchor that keeps you grounded in the present moment of your experience. Noticing the in-breath, noticing the out-breath. equanimity is that quality of the heart that allows things to be as they are, that understands the whole picture. So some of the images used for equanimity are the light of the full moon. You might bring that to mind for a moment, the light of the full moon. Like a gentle, reflective light. Or a tree blown from all directions, and it remains rooted in the ground. Sometimes the image of a rock, unshakable, might be helpful to experience this sense of equanimity. So see if any of those images work for you, connecting with this quality of equanimity and letting your whole body be filled with that quality. If you find yourself in this time of your life going through a very challenging time, or maybe you're experiencing loved ones, people you care about going through a hard time, there's also equanimity phrases that might be useful and beneficial for you to just repeat in your meditation. So I just wanted to offer a few of these equanimity phrases. And you may pick one that resonates in your being to practice with on your own in a few minutes. May I accept things as they are. May I be undisturbed by the coming and going of events. No matter how much I may wish for things to be otherwise, things are as they are. May I open to the conditions of my life with equanimity. Pleasure and pain arise and pass away. This is the nature of life. May my heart be big enough to hold the joys and sorrows without being overwhelmed. May my mind and heart be balanced and at peace with life as it is. I will care for you, but cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you happiness, but cannot make your choices for you. May I open to how it is for you right now. And then the traditional phrase, equanimity phrase from the Buddha's time. All beings are the owner of their actions. Their happiness and unhappiness depends on their actions, not upon my wishes for them. So we'll have some time just to come into silence now with our own meditation, and if there's a phrase that resonated for you, I just encourage you to just repeat this phrase softly over and over again, maybe leaving some space after saying it. Or if it just feels like you want to come into complete stillness, just following the breath, whatever feels right to you in this moment. I'll ring the bell just to come into silence. Thank you for your practice this evening around equanimity. And we have about 5 minutes to see if there's maybe any questions or comments or anything that you want to share from your lives about this or around this particular practice or a theme. And of course online as well, if you want to pose a question in the chat, please feel free to do so that we can all be together in that way. Yes?
I think the woman, I really enjoyed your talk, by the way, thank you. I think the woman in the story whose family died, I think she had to go through that in order to deepen her equanimity, or like it was necessary, something like that, in order for that to happen.
It was certainly a hard lesson, wasn't it?
I'm sure.
I imagine that she really reached a very deep state of equanimity, and apparently she did, because as the story says, she became fully enlightened. So it really impacted her in a positive way, apparently. So, yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. What's your name?
Quan Ming.
Quan Min. Okay, it's just I like to.
Steve.
Steve. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm Jean-Pierre, everyone. I had a really good example of this equanimity thing from yesterday, all within the supermarket. And then I have a question. So I had a really physical day at work, and I was kind of low and depleted, and so I walked into the supermarket. I saw one of the checkers I always see, a young, attractive woman, and we waved, and my mood got lifted, and so I decided to go in her line because that's what I do. And we started chatting, and she giggles and does the thing with her hair, and I could just see like I was elevated. I'm on this high. Mm-hmm. And then so I walk out, and then I bringing the basket back from loading my car. I'm walking in the middle of the street, and a car. I didn't see the car coming, and it just barely hit me, didn't. And the guy's window was open, and he shook his head, and he mumbled something, but all of a sudden, here comes this rage and this fantasy of like, he's going to get out of the car, he's going to say something, I'm going to say something back to him, and we're going to get into it. And then I thought, oh my God, those were two sides of the exact same coin. Mm-hmm. Like, where did I go? And there's something about in your story that jumped out when the Buddha was talking to the woman. Like, he said, seek yourself. Mm-hmm. He said something like that. Mm-hmm. That really hit me, because I think that's what I'm lacking. And what is it that the part of me that's watching me get elated with the woman and get rageful with the man, is that the self? Like watching it, not getting lost by it?
Well, first of all, I want to say you really have a beautiful example of sort of the whole catastrophe of what we can experience in terms of human emotions. Those different, the different worldly winds that you went through, and so these are just human emotions that go through us. Different mind states that can appear, and it sounds like you had a really keen awareness of what was going on. So that's really deep practice of being able to see that, how you became elated and really, sort of joyful, maybe desirous around the woman, and then this example with the car happening right after. I imagine that it made it an even more potent experience of really seeing those different winds, coursing through you. And yes, the Buddha would say they're not the self, because the Buddha, for one, didn't believe in a self, but just changing conditions that go through us as well. So different feelings, different sensations, different mind states. So you experience the sort of different mind states of elation, and then maybe, I don't know how you would describe your mind state when that happened with the car. Was it fear or
anger?
Anger, you wanted to, like you were preparing to say something back. Yeah. So you were just basically observing the different mind states and emotions. I don't know if you were maybe even connected with sensations in the body, but those would all be really good mindfulness practice, just to be aware of this human experience that we can have in those situations. So you have a very strong mindfulness practice. And so just your ability to see these winds arise in you basically is the practice, and it will ultimately lead you to a deeper sense of equanimity if you can just observe it and know that these are the different feelings and sensations and mind states that can come up, and that you don't need to be taken away by that. You might have been in that moment, but it sounds to me like you're really on a really good path of just becoming the observer, creating space so that you won't be sucked in like you might have been as you gave that example. So I really compliment you on your practice, very strong mindfulness practice, I would say. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. Just want to see if there's a question. So there's a question, what is a state of equanimity? So it's basically in the situation that, is it John Pierre that you said? Jean Pierre
Yes.
Was describing that if he had been able to stay or keep a balance of mind when he was in the checkout and he was getting really excited by this woman and becoming elated. So if he had kept a state of equanimity, he wouldn't maybe have become quite as ecstatic about it, and maybe just felt, oh yeah, okay, this is what this woman is bringing up in me, and I'm aware of it, but I can sort of keep my composure. I know that I'm feeling this way in this moment, but it's probably going to change again when I walk out of here. So the state of equanimity is just to stay balanced in your heart and mind when something, elating is happening or something that feels horrifying, that we're just keeping a balanced heart and mind, and we're not, a peaceful state in our mind, and not, get swept up by this experience. And I don't know if that's helpful, but I hope it is. Let me know if it's not. I keep looking here, even though I know you're there, so. But that's where I see your question. So, and I don't know, maybe you want to add something to the question, if you have an experience like that, or yes. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Jody.
Hi, Jody. Yes.
Sorry, it's not going to look like me.
No, that's fine. No problem.
I work in a really high stress environment, managing about 200 folks and HR manager.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, every day could be a long version of chaos, day to day. But I'm finding in the practice I'm finding that I'm observing myself, that stillness when there's chaos out here. Like this is my space that can't be permeated. Like this is my sacred space. There's chaos out here, problems, drama, that whatever it is. And I'm noticing that the coachings have gotten better. There's less anxiety when they come in. I check and it's like, are you feeling better leaving this office than when you came in? And the answer is always yes. I'm always finding that, okay, we're building you up, we're coaching you up. It's not pointing a finger, but it's an internal thing that I'm feeling that I'm regulating that's working. Is that they're responding to that calmness and that stillness, that being present with the problem, dealing with the problem and not people. It's profoundly changing my professional life too. It's spilling over, which is neat.
Wow, I'm really happy for you. It's such a beautiful example of how really uplifting and beneficial the practice can be. And I imagine that working with 200 people, that maybe the challenges that you have experienced in themselves have also helped you to get to more of a place of peace, because you described how you've created sort of this little sanctuary around you, and maybe noticed that was necessary to keep your own peace. And so I imagine that just being with 200 different personalities, that also they have really been your teacher, and along with the practice. But I want to say that I want to come work for you, because you seem like such a joyful being and peaceful and equanimous. So the next time we have a talk on equanimity, I think you should be sitting up here and giving the talk. But thank you for sharing. That's a very, very beautiful example of equanimity and what it looks like in real life, in real time. And you described that very beautifully. Thank you.
I'll add one more thing.
Yeah.
Turn my lights down unintentionally in the office so that it's tranquil, calm, not the bright beat. It's dimly lit. They walk in and it's like,
Wow. Is that something that you facilitated, or wow, that's really beautiful. It's working, yes, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and if anyone else works in HR, maybe go talk to Jody and get some suggestions from him. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I don't know if Stephen is looking at me, but we're already 6 minutes over, so I just want to see, is there any other questions or comments before we end? I don't want to leave anybody with a burning question, so. Okay, so it's Stephen's time. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My Valentine's. I'm everybody. I'm tonight's host, Stephen. We opened the Dharma Temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction. And our food redistribution program, one night I'll get that one, is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack out there. We also have a lending library right to the back. If you see a book and you like it, feel free to borrow it and bring it back whenever you're done with it. For tonight, if you could, just before you head out, just straighten up your seats or the cushions, and we thank you very much for being here, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for your practice, and just one last thing to keep us even longer, I apologize. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be starting a 10-week course during this time slot on awakening joy in difficult times. So, this will just be incorporated as part of the Buddhist Mindfulness class, and if you'd like to join, feel free. You don't have to join the whole course, it will be great, but if not, just drop in whenever you can. So we'll continue our Buddhist Mindfulness in that way on Wednesday nights. Thank you, have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
And see you next time. Thank you. Hi, Peter. I guess all your friends stayed home today, huh? Home working. Oh, wow. Like your hat. Oh, you good. Okay. Hi, James. Nice to meet you. Do you know each other? Yeah. Okay, great. Hopefully one of you has a pen, right? Yeah. Third year. But it's a little bit warmer up here. That's too much over here, right? I'm glad it didn't happen here. It is okay right now. I know.
She's looking at me. Did you have
Quite the story. Uh-huh. Right, and then when the baby went, yeah. I mean, who knows if these stories are really true, but they're just good examples where we're, yeah.